Imagine you are in a high-stakes boardroom, or perhaps a heated confrontation with someone trying to undermine your worth. The air is thick with expectation. They have just hurled an insult, a difficult question, or a demand for your immediate reaction. Most people, the weak, the unrefined, will scramble to fill that void. They will stutter, explain themselves, or lash out in defensive anger. They leak energy. They leak authority. But you do something terrifying. You say nothing. You simply hold their gaze. You let the silence stretch until it becomes a physical weight in the room. You watch the twitch in their eye, the sweat on their upper lip, as they realize they have no power over your internal state. This is not just a lack of noise. This is a weapon. This is the lethal power of silence. In a world that cannot stop screaming for attention, the one who remains silent is the one who truly rules. We have been conditioned to believe that the loudest voice wins. We are taught that to be influential, we must be vocal. This is a lie designed to keep you exhausted and transparent. The truth is, every word you speak is a piece of yourself you give away for free. When you talk too much, you become predictable. When you are predictable, you are easily defeated. Think about the last time you felt the desperate urge to explain your actions to someone who didn't even matter. Why did you do it? It was a reflex of the insecure mind, seeking validation from a world that doesn't care if you live or die. The Stoics understood a dark truth that modern society has forgotten. Silence is the ultimate fortress. It is the only place where your enemies cannot reach you. In this transmission, we are going to dismantle the myth of the vocal leader. We will dive into why your brain is wired to fear silence and how you can exploit that fear in others. We will look at the cold, calculated tactics used by history's most feared sovereigns, men who conquered empires not with roaring speeches, but with the quiet, devastating weight of their presence. If you are looking for feel-good motivation, leave now. This is for those who want to reclaim their psychological sovereignty. By the end of this, you will understand why your greatest strength lies in what you choose not to say. You will learn to turn the void into a mirror that reflects your opponent's insecurities back at them until they break. Prepare yourself. The noise ends here. The power begins in the dark. To master silence, you must first understand why your DNA screams against it. Deep within your cerebral cortex, there is an ancient mechanism, a relic of a time when the world was much more honest and much more violent. For your ancestors on the African savanna, noise was a synonym for existence. The rustle of leaves meant a breeze. The snap of a twig meant a moving body. The chatter of the tribe meant safety and social cohesion. Sound was the data of life. Silence, however, was the herald of the predator. When the forest goes quiet, it is because every living creature has frozen in fear of a hidden threat. This is why, when you sit in a room with a stranger who refuses to speak, your palms begin to sweat and your heart rate accelerates. Your amygdala, the brain's primitive alarm system, is firing frantically. It is interpreting that lack of verbal data as a predatory gap. It senses a hidden intention. Your biology is literally hardwired to perceive silence as a threat to your survival. By remaining silent, you are triggering a primal evolutionary fear in the mind of your opponent. You are becoming the tiger in the tall grass. But the biology of silence goes deeper than mere survival instinct. It is a war of neurochemistry. In modern social interaction, we are constantly engaged in a dopamine loop of validation. When someone speaks to you and you respond, both brains experience a minor release of dopamine, the reward for successful social synchronization. It feels safe. It feels normal. When you intentionally break this loop by withholding your response, you induce a state of acute cognitive dissonance in the other person. Their brain, expecting a reward, instead receives a surge of cortisol, the stress hormone. Physiologically, they begin to unravel. Notice the subtle signs, the way they shift their weight from one foot to the other, the erratic movements of their pupils as they search your face for a read, the way their breathing becomes shallow and jagged. They are experiencing a minor version of social freezing. Because they cannot synchronize with you, their brain begins to fill the void with their own worst insecurities. They start to wonder, what do they know that I don't? Are they judging me? Have I already lost? This is the mirror effect of biology. Because the human brain is an obsessive pattern-matching machine, it cannot tolerate a vacuum of information. If you do not provide the meaning, the other person's brain will manufacture it out of thin air, usually using their own fears as the raw material. You are not just being quiet, you are forcing their biology to turn against them. You are hacking their nervous system, using 500 million years of evolutionary programming to make them feel small, transparent, and subordinate. Consider the dead air in a broadcast. It is considered a catastrophe because the audience's attention begins to fracture and turn inward. In a negotiation or a confrontation, your silence is that dead air. You are cutting the power line to their social ego. While they are drowning in cortisol, trying to find a way to make the discomfort stop, you remain calm. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of Stoic logic, remains in control, observing their biological collapse with the cold detachment of a surgeon. They are reacting, you are existing. And in the hierarchy of nature, the one who does not need to react is always the one at the top of the food chain. Most people treat conversation as a bridge, a way to connect and find common ground. In the realm of dark Stoicism, we treat it as a projection screen. When you remain silent, you are not merely not speaking. You are withdrawing the scaffolding that holds up the other person's social persona. Without your verbal cues, nods of approval, or counterarguments, their ego begins to lose its orientation. This is where the mirror effect begins to take hold. Think of silence as a perfectly still black lake. When someone speaks into that lake, they expect a ripple, a reaction from you. When you deny them that ripple, they see only their own reflection. If they are insecure, they see a stuttering fool. If they are lying, they see a desperate fabricator. Because you are providing a vacuum, their mind is forced to project its own internal chaos onto you. They begin to attribute thoughts to you that you haven't even had. They might say, "I know what you're thinking," or "Are you mad because I said that?" In reality, you aren't thinking anything about them. You are simply observing. But their guilt, their fear, and their need for approval are doing the work for you. Let us look at a concrete scenario of psychological dominance. Imagine a subordinate or a rival who has just delivered a subpar report or a subtle insult. They stop talking, waiting for your move. The amateur reacts. They get angry, or they offer constructive criticism. Both of these responses give the other person data to work with. They can argue back, they can apologize, or they can rationalize. But the dark Stoic does neither. You maintain eye contact, perhaps with a slight unreadable tilt of the head, and you say nothing. You count to 10 in your head. During those 10 seconds, the other person's mind will go through a violent cycle of self-interrogation. They will feel an unbearable pressure to fill the social void. "I mean, I know the data was a bit light in the third quarter," they might blurt out unprompted. "But we had those supply chain issues, you know. Well, actually, maybe I should have double-checked that one vendor." Observe what just happened. Without you saying a single word of accusation, they have begun to confess their own failures. They have handed you the leverage you didn't even have to ask for. This is the art of the silent interrogation. By refusing to comfort them with small talk or social niceties, you have forced them to become their own prosecutor. You have turned their own brain into a mirror that reflects their incompetence back at them until they can no longer stand the sight of it. The mirror effect is also a filter for truth. A liar cannot survive silence. A lie requires a constant stream of verbal reinforcement to maintain its illusion. When a liar meets a silent wall, they begin to over-explain. They add unnecessary details. They try to fix the silence by talking more, and in that frantic effort to maintain the lie, the contradictions inevitably emerge. You are the immovable object. They are the wave that breaks itself against you. Remember, in any interaction, the one who is more comfortable with silence is the one who holds the power. Silence communicates that you are self-sufficient. It signals that you do not need their validation, their agreement, or even their presence to feel secure. By reflecting their noise back at them through your stillness, you become an enigma, a dark, polished mirror in which they see only their own fraying edges. They will leave the encounter feeling exposed, while you remain entirely intact. You have mastered the most lethal form of psychological transparency, making them reveal everything while you reveal nothing. To understand the practical application of silence as a weapon of war, we must look to the Roman Forum and the man who became the living embodiment of Stoic defiance, Cato the Younger. In an era of flamboyant orators and silver-tongued politicians like Cicero and Julius Caesar, Cato was an anomaly. He did not seek to win through eloquence. He sought to win through the sheer, immovable weight of his presence. History records a specific moment that perfectly illustrates the lethal nature of Stoic silence. Cato was often the target of immense political vitriol. His enemies, desperate to break his composure, would resort to the basest of insults. On one occasion, while Cato was pleading a case, a man named Lentulus, a man known for his corruption and foul temper, approached Cato and spat directly in his face. The forum went silent. In Roman culture, this was an insult beyond words. It was an invitation to a violent outburst, a scream, or a physical retaliation. The crowd held its breath, expecting Cato to erupt in righteous fury. But Cato did not move. He did not wipe the saliva from his cheek. He did not even blink. He simply stared at Lentulus with a gaze so cold it was said to feel like iron. After a long, agonizing silence that made Lentulus visibly tremble with agitation, Cato spoke. He did not curse. He did not threaten. He simply said, "I will swear to everyone, Lentulus, that people are mistaken when they say you have no mouth." By refusing to react to the filth on his face, Cato had instantly inverted the power dynamic. Lentulus had attempted to make Cato look small. Instead, through his silence, Cato made Lentulus look like a frantic animal. Cato's stillness proved that Lentulus was not even significant enough to warrant an emotional response. This is the dark side of Stoic restraint. It is not about being nice or forgiving. It is about demonstrating that your opponent's most aggressive act is utterly impotent against the fortress of your mind. Cato understood that a reaction is a form of submission. When you react to an insult, you are admitting that the other person has the power to disturb your peace. You are giving them exactly what they want, evidence that they matter. Cato's silence in the forum was a public execution of Lentulus' ego. He allowed the silence to act as a vacuum that sucked the dignity out of his attacker. Consider the discipline required for such a feat. It is not natural. It is a calculated, artificial suppression of the animal self. Cato would often spend entire days in the Senate without uttering a single word, even as his rivals screamed themselves hoarse. He knew that the more they talked, the more they revealed their weaknesses, their fears, and their desperation. By the time Cato finally rose to speak, often after hours of chilling silence, his few words carried the weight of a mountain. He had let his enemies exhaust their ammunition against a shadow. This is the lesson of the Roman Stoic. Your silence is your shield, and your stillness is your blade. When you refuse to be moved, you become an immovable object in a world of frantic, colliding waves. Cato didn't need to win the argument. He had already won the soul of the encounter the moment he decided that his silence was worth more than his enemy's noise. While Cato used silence as a shield for his soul, others in history have used it as a guillotine for their enemies' ambitions. To see the dark side of silence in its most refined, predatory form, we must look at the court of Louis XIV, the Sun King of France. Louis was not just a monarch, he was a master of psychological warfare who turned the halls of Versailles into a vacuum of information where only he could breathe. Louis XIV was surrounded by the most ambitious, cunning, and treacherous aristocrats in Europe. Each of them was a predator in their own right, constantly seeking a crack in the king's armor, a hint of his preferences or a sign of weakness. They would approach him with elaborate pleas, desperate requests for favors, or long-winded reports designed to sway his judgment. Most kings would argue, negotiate, or at least offer a polite rejection. Louis XIV did something far more devastating. He would listen to their frantic speeches with a face as impassive as granite. He would look them directly in the eye, offering no nod, no frown, and no verbal acknowledgement. When the petitioner finally exhausted their words and stood trembling in the heavy silence, waiting for a life-altering decision, Louis would utter only 3 words, "Je verrai," I shall see, and then he would walk away. This was not a promise, it was not a refusal, it was a psychological black hole. By refusing to give an immediate answer, Louis kept his courtiers in a state of permanent, agonizing suspense. Because they didn't know where they stood, they spent their days and nights overanalyzing every second of that silent encounter. They would ruin themselves trying to interpret the lack of expression on his face. This silence allowed Louis to remain an enigma. As long as he said nothing, he remained unpredictable. And as every strategist knows, the unpredictable enemy is the one you can never defeat. The brilliance of Louis's silence lay in its economy of power. He understood that the more a leader speaks, the more they appear common. Words are cheap, anyone can produce them. But silence is the luxury of the sovereign. By saying, "I shall see," and retreating into silence, he forced the most powerful men in France to grovel for his attention. He made them feel that their words were insignificant against the vast, quiet ocean of his will. He was the center of the universe, not because he shone the brightest, but because he was the coldest. This is the dark psychology of the superior silence. When you withhold your reaction, you are essentially saying, your words have not yet earned the right to a response. It is a subtle form of ego degradation. In the modern world, this tactic is still used by the most elite negotiators and power players. They know that the first person to speak in a high-stakes silence is usually the one who is losing. By mirroring Louis XIV, they let the other side's anxiety do the work. They let the opponent offer more concessions, reveal more secrets, and eventually surrender, just to make the crushing weight of the silence stop. Louis XIV didn't need to be a tyrant to control his court. He only needed to be a ghost. He lived in the gaps between his words. He knew that the throne is not built of gold, but of the fear of what the king might be thinking when he says nothing at all. Remember this: the one who controls the silence controls the room, and the one who controls the room eventually controls the world. The battlefields have changed, but the psychology remains primal. We no longer stand in the Roman Forum or the halls of Versailles, but the modern office, the boardroom, and even our digital chat windows are the new arenas of psychological warfare. In these spaces, noise is constant. We are pressured to be responsive, to collaborate, and to circle back immediately. This constant chatter is a trap designed to make you transparent, predictable, and ultimately replaceable. Imagine a typical high-pressure meeting. You have just presented a strategy or a report. A rival, sensing an opportunity to climb over you, leans back and throws a passive-aggressive barb wrapped in a fake smile. That's a very interesting approach, they say, their tone dripping with condescension. But don't you think it's a bit naive, considering the current market volatility? Or did you just miss that part of the data? The room goes cold. All eyes turn to you. Your pulse quickens. The normal human reaction is to defend. You feel the urge to explain your reasoning, to list your sources, or perhaps to snap back with an insult of your own. But if you do that, you have already lost. You have accepted their frame. You have begun to leak power. Instead, you apply the dark Stoic filter. You do not flinch. You do not offer a nervous chuckle to break the tension. You simply stop. You look at them, not with anger, but with a flat, clinical curiosity, as if you were observing a strange insect. You let 5 seconds pass, then 10. The silence in a modern office is far more uncomfortable than it was in ancient times, because we are addicted to digital stimulation. As the clock ticks, your rival's smirk will begin to falter. They expected a fight. Instead, they found a void. To fill the suffocating silence they created, they will almost always start digging their own grave. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad plan, they might stammer, their voice rising an octave. I just thought, for the sake of the team, we should be thorough. I'm just looking out for the project, obviously. By doing nothing, you have forced them to explain their insult. You have turned their aggressive move into a defensive apology. You haven't said a word, yet everyone in the room has just watched your rival lose their composure while you remained an unshakable pillar. You have demonstrated that their opinion is not heavy enough to move you. This dynamic extends even to our pockets. Think of the read registry. In our digital age, the most powerful move you can make is to read a provocative message and wait. Most people are slaves to the blue checkmark. They see it as a mandate to respond. But when you withhold that response, you are taking up residence in the other person's head. While you are calmly going about your day, they are staring at their screen, agonizing over your silence. Are they busy? Are they unimpressed? Did I overstep?
By the time you finally send a short 3-word reply hours later, they are so relieved to hear from you that they have already surrendered their leverage. In a world that demands your instant reaction, your delay is your sovereignty. Whether it's in a glass-walled conference room or a smartphone screen, silence is the ultimate high-status signal. It tells the world that you are the one who decides when a conversation begins and ends. You are not a cog in their machine. You are the architect of your own stillness.
Knowledge without execution is merely entertainment. To become a master of the lethal power of silence, you must practice it not when it is easy, but when your pulse is racing and the social pressure is at its peak. Here are 3 tactical protocols you will begin implementing today to reclaim your psychological sovereignty and dominate your environment. Protocol 1: the 4-second void. In every conversation, from the most mundane small talk to the most intense negotiation, there is a natural rhythm. Most people are so afraid of silence that they overlap their words, finishing each other's sentences just to keep the connection alive. You will break this rhythm. Starting today, whenever someone asks you a question, any question, you will wait exactly 4 seconds before you speak. Do not look away, do not fidget. Maintain a neutral, steady gaze. During those 4 seconds, the other person's brain will desperately scramble to figure out if they said something wrong or if you were judging them. By the time you finally answer, your words will carry 10 times the weight because you have forced them to earn your response. You are signaling that you are the master of your own time and that you did not react to their prompts like a trained animal. Protocol 2: the "and" technique. One of the most common ways people try to manipulate or undermine you is by throwing out open-ended insults or vague criticisms. "I'm not sure about this direction," they might say, hoping you'll start babbling in self-defense. Instead of defending, you will use silence as an interrogation tool. After they speak, look them in the eye and say one word, "and," then stop. Do not explain why you are asking. Just wait. By forcing them to elaborate on their own vague negativity, you make them do the hard work of justifying their position. Most of the time, they will realize their criticism is baseless and begin to walk it back. You aren't arguing, you are simply providing a mirror. Silence is the ultimate BS detector. If their point is weak, the silence will expose it far more effectively than any counter-argument ever could. Protocol 3: the exit silence. In any meeting, date, or social gathering, the most powerful person is the one who can leave the conversation without a social apology. Most people feel the need to justify their departure. "Oh, I have another meeting," or "I should probably get going." This is weak. It seeks permission. Instead, when you are finished with a conversation, simply stop talking. Let a silence hang for 2 seconds. Give a slight, respectful nod and walk away. No explanation, no "talk to you later," just the sudden, clean cut of your presence. This leaves a lingering presence vacuum. Because you didn't provide a narrative for your exit, people will fill that void with their own curiosity. They will wonder about your mystery, your importance, and your next move. You become the person everyone remembers, not because of what you said, but because of the powerful stillness you left behind. These are not tips, these are drills for the mind. You are training yourself to be comfortable in the discomfort of others. You are learning that your silence is not a void, but a solid wall. Every time you resist the urge to fill the silence with useless noise, you are strengthening the iron gates of your internal fortress. Today, your goal is not to be liked. Your goal is to be unshakable.
As you master the lethal power of silence, you must realize that you are not the only predator in the jungle. There will be times when you encounter someone who also understands the weight of the void. A manipulative boss, a toxic partner, or a rival negotiator who tries to use the silent treatment to make you crawl. They want to turn your own tool against you. They want to see you squirm, stutter, and eventually break just to stop the discomfort. But they have made a fatal mistake. They are trying to drown a fish. To a dark Stoic, silence is not a vacuum to be feared. It is our natural habitat. When someone weaponizes silence against you, your first defense is internal, non-reaction. They are watching your micro-expressions, looking for signs of anxiety, a tap of the finger, a shift in your seat, or a desperate attempt to restart the conversation. Do not give them a single drop of blood. If they stop talking to pressure you, treat it as a gift. Use that time to breathe, to observe the dust motes in the air, or to calmly analyze their posture. By showing that their silence does not disturb your internal peace, you render their weapon useless. You aren't playing their game, you are observing the player. If the silence persists and you need to break it for strategic reasons, do not do so with an apology or a clarification. That is a surrender. Instead, use the verbal labeling technique. This drags their dark tactic into the light, where it loses its power. Look them dead in the eye and say calmly, "It seems like you're carefully weighing your next words," or "It feels like this silence is intended to make a point." By labeling the silence, you are no longer the victim of the void. You are the narrator of the encounter. You have exposed their mystery as a mere tactic. It is the psychological equivalent of turning the lights on during a horror movie. Once the tactic is named, the other person usually feels a surge of self-consciousness and is forced to speak to maintain their own dignity. The final and most devastating counter-defense is physical withdrawal. If someone is using silence to stonewall you or exert dominance, they are relying on your presence to make the tactic work. They need an audience for their performance. If the silence becomes unproductive or clearly manipulative, give them a thin, knowing smile, stand up, and leave the room without saying a word. This is the ultimate Uno reverse card. You are not storming out in anger. You are calmly exiting a conversation that has ceased to be useful. By walking away, you leave them alone with their own silence. Now they are the ones staring at an empty chair, wondering if they went too far. You have taken the void they created and dumped it back in their lap. Never forget, the silent treatment only works on those who are starving for validation. If you are self-sufficient, if you find your approval within the fortress of your own mind, their silence is merely a quiet moment for you to plan your next move. You cannot be manipulated by a lack of noise when your internal voice is a roar of conviction. They are trying to freeze you out. Instead, you will show them that you are the one who brought the winter.
We have spoken of silence as a blade, a shield, and a mirror. But beneath the tactics of dominance lies a deeper, darker truth that only the few will ever truly possess. The ultimate power of silence is not what it does to others, but what it does to you. It is the architectural blueprint for the inner citadel, the place within your mind where the world's noise goes to die. If you cannot find peace within your own silence, you will always be a slave to the tongues of lesser men. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled the known world while his heart remained in the shadows of contemplation, wrote that nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Think of the absolute sovereignty required to hold that thought.
While the legions marched and the barbarians clawed at the gates of Rome, Aurelius understood that the only true chaos was the noise between his own ears. He knew that the universe is change, but our life is what our thoughts make it, and thoughts are most potent when they are born in the womb of silence. Most of you are terrified of being alone with your thoughts. You drown the void with music, with mindless scrolling, with the constant pathetic need to hear your own voice validated by another. You do this because you are afraid of the judgment that emerges when the external noise stops. You are afraid to face the truth of who you are when no one is watching. The dark Stoic, however, craves this confrontation. We know that silence is the only court where the verdict is always final. In the quiet, your lies have no audience, your excuses have no echo. You are stripped naked before the mirror of your own conscience, and only then can you begin to build something made of iron. Understand this: the world does not owe you an explanation, and you do not owe the world your words. There is a profound, cold freedom in realizing that you are self-sufficient. When you master your internal silence, you stop being a beggar for attention. You realize that most human speech is merely a frantic attempt to cover up a profound lack of purpose. People talk to hide their fear, to mask their ignorance, or to fill the terrifying vacuum where a soul should be. By remaining silent, you are withdrawing your participation from this collective insanity. You are standing outside the burning house, watching the flames with the detached curiosity of a god. Your mind is a temple, but you have allowed it to become a marketplace, noisy, cluttered, and filled with the opinions of people who do not matter. To reclaim your power, you must clear the stalls. You must drive out the money changers of approval and the merchants of social status. You must realize that your internal peace is a sovereign territory that no one can invade unless you open the gates. Silence is the lock on those gates. When you speak, you are a subject to the listener. When you are silent, you are the monarch of the moment. This is the core of our philosophy. Let your actions be a roar and your words be a whisper, or better yet, nothing at all. The man who needs to explain himself has already lost his dignity. The man who can sit in a dark room for an hour and feel no need to justify his existence to the universe is the only man who is truly free. Build your citadel in the dark. Temper your spirit in the quiet. Become the immovable center around which the frantic world revolves, but never touches.
You have spent the last 20 minutes in a world of silence. Most of you felt the urge to pause this video, to check your notifications, or to distract yourselves from the cold truths we have dismantled. That was your weakness, crying out for the noise that keeps it comfortable. But if you are still here, it means you have felt the first tremors of your own internal sovereignty. You have glimpsed the predator you could become if you simply stopped leaking your power through your tongue. The transmission is ending, but your work is just beginning. When you close this window and step back into the chaotic theater of your daily life, the world will try to pull you back into its frantic rhythm. People will provoke you. They will demand your opinions. They will beg for your validation. They will wait for you to stumble over your own words. Now you know the answer. Your silence is not an absence of action. It is the highest form of discipline. Every time you hold your breath when you want to complain, every time you maintain eye contact instead of stuttering an excuse, and every time you walk away from a useless argument, you are adding another stone to the walls of your inner citadel.
You are becoming an enigma in a world of open books. You are becoming a force that cannot be measured and therefore cannot be managed. If you are ready to stop being a pawn in other people's social games, if you are ready to reclaim the lethal power that is your birthright, then I have one task for you. Do not tell your friends about this. Do not post a quote about silence on your social media. That would be more noise. Instead, go into the comments below and type one single word: silence. Let that word be your signature in the dark. Let it be the signal to yourself and to this growing legion that you are no longer a slave to the noise. We are watching who among you has the discipline to act without seeking a pat on the back. If you found value in this cold light, subscribe to this channel, not for inspiration, but for the strategic tools required to dominate your own mind and your environment. We do not offer comfort here. We offer iron. Join us or continue to drown in the shallow waters of the masses. The choice, as always, is yours. But remember, the world belongs to those who can listen to its secrets in the dark. Stay silent. Stay unshakable. Stay in the dark.